From the KTLW studios on the Secor Safety Network, I'm Mike Zients with a special report. Recent scorching temperatures have caused a dramatic rise in the number of people being treated for heat-related injuries and illnesses. And health officials are urging the public, and especially anyone who works outside or in a hot environment, to learn how to spot the warning signs. On location is reporter Joe Rainier with a special guest. Joe?
Mike, I'm here talking with Dr. Kelly Weston, who specializes in heat-related disorders. Kelly, what should people be looking for?
Well, Joe, it's very important to remember that high temperatures can put considerable stress on the body, and this is true whether you're working outside in the sun or, for instance, in the case of someone who works offshore or on a vessel in a hot environment like a galley or an engine room. Heat-related disorders can range from moderate to severe and even fatal, and heat can also cause accidents.
Dr. Weston, how does heat cause those accidents?
In two different ways, directly and indirectly. Fogged glasses, sweat in your eyes, slippery hands, or dizziness and fainting can cause accidents directly by impairing your sight, your coordination, or your ability to handle tools and machinery properly. Now, indirect causes like being physically uncomfortable or irritable and slower mental and physical reactions can impair your judgment, which can then lead to mistakes, accidents, or even worse.
You said there were different kinds of heat illnesses. Can you explain a little bit about each of those?
Sure. First of all, there are familiar disorders such as sunburn and heat rash. Sunburn is not just uncomfortable, it can actually prevent your body from eliminating heat effectively. And the sun can cause second-degree burns if you're not careful. The key to prevention is to limit your exposure as much as possible, especially between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. when the UV rays are strongest. And you should wear a sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30. You should also wear UV protective safety glasses.
What about heat rash?
Heat rash is different. It's another uncomfortable disorder, but heat rash is caused by sweaty skin and the blockage of sweat ducts. To avoid it, simply keep your skin clean and dry and bathe.
Joe, if I could interrupt here with a question of my own. Dr. Weston, you said that there are very serious and even fatal illnesses that are caused by heat. Can you talk about those?
Oh, absolutely. In a hot environment, the symptoms of heat stress can come very suddenly and without warning, so it's important to recognize the early symptoms of heat-related disorders. Now, this is especially critical when you work in an environment where the air temperature is higher than your internal body temperature. In its more serious form, heat stress can lead to three major forms of heat illness. First, heat cramps are muscle spasms that affect the arms, legs, or stomach, the body parts you use most often while working. They typically occur later in the day after you've finished work, and heat cramps are caused by mineral loss through sweating, especially if you drink fluids without a supply of salt or potassium. While heat cramps can be very painful, they're rarely life-threatening. Drinking electrolyte solutions and eating fruits, such as bananas, are a good way to prevent heat cramps. The next illness in terms of severity is heat exhaustion. Now, this is a serious illness that occurs when you sweat profusely, but you don't replace that fluid by drinking water or electrolyte drinks.
And what are the symptoms?
Well, there are many symptoms. Headache, heavy sweating, intense thirst, dizziness, fatigue, loss of coordination, nausea, impaired judgment, loss of appetite, hyperventilation, tingling in the hands or feet, anxiety, and a weak or rapid pulse.
Well, what should you do if you're suffering from these symptoms or if you notice a coworker with these symptoms?
The first thing to do is get them out of that environment. Move them to a cool location like a shaded area or an air-conditioned room and loosen or remove outer clothing and boots. Have them lie down with their feet slightly elevated and help them apply cool, wet cloths to their forehead, neck, and the inside of their arms, and fan them. Also, make sure they drink plenty of water, and really, anyone who suffers from heat exhaustion should rest for at least a day while continuing to drink water to replace their fluids.
Well, then there is a potentially fatal heat illness.
That's right, and the most life-threatening heat illness is heat stroke. It occurs when the body has depleted its supply of water and salt, causing the body temperature to rise to very, very dangerous levels. Now, here's the problem. Heat stroke is often mistaken for a heart attack or a head injury because it can cause a person to become confused or act strangely. So it's very important to be able to recognize the symptoms of heat stroke and to check for them if anyone collapses on the job. First, look for a high body temperature of 103 degrees or more. A heat stroke victim's skin will be dry, hot, and red or flushed with no sweat. They'll have a rapid pulse, trouble breathing, constricted pupils, dizziness, headache, nausea, vomiting, and, like I said, they may seem confused or exhibit bizarre behavior. Someone suffering from heat stroke may also become unconscious, and their body temperature can reach a deadly 108 degrees. It is vital to lower a heat stroke victim's body temperature by pouring water over them, fanning them, or applying cold packs. And never try to give liquids to an unconscious person. Emergency medical attention must be sought immediately. Finally, I want to point out that when it's hot, blood is being supplied to the skin, so less blood is reaching your brain. That means that bending, squatting, and standing suddenly can cause you to feel dizzy or even to black out.
Well, that's a lot of good information. Thank you, Dr. Weston. Mike, back to you in the studio.
Joe, we're going to close out this special report with advice from other health officials who say that there are many ways to avoid heat illness. First, you should condition yourself to work in hot environments. Start slowly and build your way up to strenuous physical work. Drink lots of liquids, mainly water. About 5 to 7 ounces every 15 to 20 minutes should be the norm. But avoid drinks with caffeine like soda and coffee. Officials say you should wear lightweight, light-colored clothing when you're working in the sun. And lightweight clothing is always a good idea when you're working in the engine room or galley. And finally, get enough sleep, preferably in a place that's cool. With a little caution and a lot of common sense, you can avoid heat stress. That concludes our special report. From the KTLW studios on the Seacore Safety Network, I'm Mike Science.